Welcome to Action Hour. We're deep diving into a story that could reshape global animal welfare laws. Our guest is Duncan McNair, Esquire, founder of Save the Asian Elephants and the driving force behind the groundbreaking Animal Low Welfare Activities Abroad Act. This world-first law could bring an end to the cruelty endured by countless animals, including endangered species like the Asian elephant. Duncan, welcome and congratulations on your award for the Legal Hero of the Year 2024 from the Law Society. We're going to get into that very deeply a little later and how it's significant to the law. We want to talk about this Animals Low Welfare Activities Abroad Act. We want to talk about this because you have significant new news. So I'm going to let you jump right into that now. Go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. Well, good morning, Lindsay. Thanks so much for hosting this show and having me on it. Yeah, it's a very pivotal time. I've appeared on your show before, was very pleased to, and I explained that the Animals Low Welfare Activities Abroad Act was passed by the Westminster Parliament here in England a year ago. And we fought very hard, my organisation, Save the Asian Elephant, not only to get this law, it's taken 10 years of daily toil, but to make sure that it is properly implemented and then robustly enforced by our government. There's been a lag and a confusion on the part of the previous government that's now been ejected from office in our general election 3 months ago. We have a new government, a Labour government. There's been a bit of a slow start with them with 1 million priorities, but I'm really pleased to say that I have now secured on behalf of an enormous coalition of animal protection charities a crucial meeting with government ministers and their officials here in Westminster for Monday week, the 14th of October. And it's very important because it's with a key minister, and the purpose of the meeting is to use every proper technique to lean on and apply pressure to government to get on with implementing this law. It's confusing to some how a law, once it's been passed as a law, doesn't become effective. Well, it was granted royal assent by His Majesty King Charles over a year ago, immediately, astonishingly, within 2 hours of the last debate in Parliament, but nothing has happened since. And the reason for this is known as enabling legislation, and what's required is the relevant government minister to lay a special paper before both houses of Parliament, which sets out the exact activities that are now going to be prohibited from being advertised in the UK with respect to animal tourism abroad. And we are going to be fighting very hard at this meeting to ensure we have a clear timetable for enforcement.
Duncan, let me just interrupt for a second because I'm having a little trouble hearing. I and my audience may be also. If you could possibly speak up.
Okay.
I do apologize.
Not at all. Apologies from my end. I hope that's a bit clearer. I'm on full 100% volume, but I'm also speaking as loud as I can without being discourteous. I hope you can hear me okay now.
Be discourteous.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and I'm hoping we can bump this up, but let's keep going with the interview. I have to catch up with you so far. So you're talking about now why this law is so significant. We want to continue with that. And then we're going to go into really just for the people do not know, I want to backtrack a little bit to what exactly we're talking about, because the law, the name of it is a little bit unwieldy, forgive me. And we want to explain to people what we're talking about. So let's wrap up what you're talking about. Let's jump into that.
Okay. Well, look, every year, many holiday makers are unaware that every year, millions of animals across the world are exploited, harmed, and killed in tourism. Much of the brutality threatens the survival of the planet's most iconic species: elephants, apes, big cats, bears, dolphins, ostriches, exotic birds, donkeys, camels, many others. This brutal exploitation takes place across numerous countries around the globe, all for tourism, fun, and profits.
Let's just name off a couple.
Well, of species, if you mean of species, as mentioned, elephants, of course, lions, tigers, monkeys, gorillas, bears, dolphins, orcas, exotic birds, ostriches, horses, donkeys, camels, and many others.
Many.
Yeah. And many of them, they're all vulnerable, and many of them are very close to extinction.
Yes.
And so this brutal exploitation takes place in numerous countries. And my organization, Save the Asian Elephants, has identified over 1,200 companies in the UK who profit from advertising nearly 300 brutal elephant venues alone, just for elephants. This growing market of abuse reflects the lack of any effective legislation. It's no use pleading with these big multinational tour companies. Do you realize you're ruining these species forever? Please relent. That's failed and failed again over decades. What we need is law. I know, as a fairly experienced practicing lawyer, we need law with proper enforcement and penalties. It's crucial while there is still time remaining for many of these highly endangered species. So that's why we need that's why we need a law.
Right.
I'll go now to explain how this new law will help animals, if I may, Lindsey.
Yes, let's do that. But we do also want to make sure that we get out today what the activities are, so people doing the travel actually that are traveling actually know that taking a picture with a tiger is not okay. So go ahead, let's do that, and let's move to the next one. But we need
right. Well, let's deal with your question. What are the activities? There are too many to enumerate, but let's give you some examples. So riding of elephants, camels, ostriches, cattle in rodeos, equids. Let me give you an example. People think, well, we're small, elephants are huge. What's the problem riding them? But they misunderstand the basics. Elephants are wild animals. And what happens is invariably, baby elephants are ruthlessly taken from the wild. Their mother is killed in front of them, who tries to protect them. Typically 6 or 7 members of the herd are killed who try to protect the baby. The baby is taken away, isolated in captivity, placed in what's called a crushing cage, dehydrated, starved, kept awake for weeks with massive loud noise, and then is beaten, stabbed, ripped with hooks, have their legs smashed with iron bars, sometimes have their eyes pulled out. It's almost too awful to say. I've seen a lot of this happening, until their spirits are broken. And then they turn from the wild animal into a complete husk, terrified, fearful, only having to have the bullhook shaken in front of them to be terrified into submission for easy use in tourism purposes. That's the tragic life story of an elephant taken from the wild. Elephants are not like horses or dogs. They don't just do things because you ask them. Horses and dogs have been tamed and domesticated by man over 10,000 years. Elephants, in contrast, remain as wild animals, and they are brutally beaten up and tortured in this way to break their spirits. The Hindi word is pajan, the breaking of the spirits. It's appalling. 50% of the babies die in the process. and the rest live very abbreviated, sad, lonely, painful, horrified lives. That's the story for the elephants. Your program won't permit me, I think, to go through all the other species, but I'll just give one. Ostriches. Ostriches are used widely for riding as well. Their backs are not made for riding any more than elephants are. They are almost throttled with tape and leather straps held tightly around their necks. Big fat tourists get on them and break their backs. And I've seen ostrich lying, choking its blood up to death in the dust after having its back broken. So just two species. Let me tell you now some of the activities. So I've said riding, forced walking or running with elephants, big cats and bulls, racing of equids, camels, buffalo, touching and petting and unnatural photo taking in wild animal cafes, with all sorts of bird life and mammals and koalas and penguins and anteaters, dozens of species, viewing cetaceans in captivity like whales and dolphins, horribly abused in tanks, being forced under the water to desperately paddle for their life to try and get to land, to the side. Unnatural performances in zoos and circuses, football, orangutans being made to box each other until then they're knocked out or killed.
Oh my gosh.
Fighting of animals, that applies to bulls, cockerels, crocodiles, alligators, buffaloes, trophy and canned hunting, lions and other large predators who shoved in a cage and shot dead by people for a few $100s, who then take the pelt of the victim or the head and adorn their fireplace back home. That's a big thing in the States.
Yes.
Hunting with dogs, watching slaughter. So slaughter parades, for example, in China, where animals are slaughtered for fun in front of huge cheering crowds.
Oh my
Just for fun. That affects snakes, cats, dogs, chickens, guinea pigs, and other animals inhumanely killed for food.
Oh my God.
I can go on and on. There are many species and many activities. So all the attempts over decades to persuade these big companies and sometimes small companies advertising these activities and these holidays where they happen have been an utter waste of time trying to persuade them to stop. Because, hey, if you're making big bucks, who cares? Who cares? Who cares that these animals are near the end after millions of years? Who cares that the elephants are the mega gardeners of the forests who maintain and nourish the forests on which all of us depend with their absorption of our carbon footprint and all the rest of it? Hey, who cares? Well, I care. And evidently we know of tens of millions of people who care desperately. 36 million have signed Stay's petition at
Yes. Let's talk about that. I want to jump in for a moment there, Duncan. You have an unprecedented response to this act. First of all, 95% of the people who were quoted or were questioned responded with positive response that yes, this should be enacted. So these are people that were surveyed, I should say, right? And then also, let's just talk about why you think that you've had such an overwhelming response to this.
Well, I think firstly, because we've really been working hard to bring these issues to the attention of an unknowing public. And I'm not being critical of them. I knew nothing of all of these horrors 10 years ago until I started hearing stories and went to India to look for myself, and I was disgusted. The answer is because if you ask enough people, I found people do care about our fellow creatures, our brothers and sisters in nature. We are not an island, humankind. We rely upon and are part of a wider web of the animal kingdom. And we cannot, one species cannot hold all the others to ransom and treat them with torture and disdain. I think nearly everyone in the world believes that when they know the facts. And remember, very few people are making big money out of the despoilation of all other species. All of us are suffering from their loss. It's ruining the planet in many ways and contributing to climate change, to a rise in temperatures through the loss of the forests and other problems. And it's not surprising to me. Many people say the surprise is, what about the other 5%? What the hell are they thinking? And the answer is actually our latest, one of our recent polls showed 99.1% support our act.
Wow. So let's go a little further. We can circle back around on all of this, but we want to take everyone through this. So what was the thing that, like with that kind of support, what is holding it up? I understand you do have a breakthrough, and you should mention that. You just had a recent breakthrough, and you have a meeting with the Labor government has agreed with you on to meet with you on October 14th.
Yeah. Well, it's important that, as I mentioned a little earlier, I lead a coalition of nearly 200 animal protection charities, not only in the UK, but from all corners of the earth. And I assembled that for the purpose of gathering field evidence, local evidence from where it's happening, of all the abuses of the sort that I've just read out some to you. And I've held them together. There's many extremely good and knowledgeable organizations around the world who have input to and support the huge database of evidence that we've assembled and put before government to show that these activities are happening and they're wrong and they're widespread and they are covered by this act and they should be prohibited from being advertised. And beyond that, we've gone on to say exactly in a list what those activities must be. And that is essentially the document. We've done government's work for them. And when they're busy, we think that's helpful. And we want them to adopt that list and get on with the minister placing it before Parliament so that there's a vote in each house and that list is passed. And from that time, it is a criminal offence in England and Northern Ireland to advertise any of those activities that happen abroad. I'd like to tell you in 2 sentences what the Act actually does. And it's very simple. The Act prohibits the advertising or selling of attractions or activities abroad which inflict low standards of welfare on any vertebrate animals where that activity, if it were happening in England and Northern Ireland, would be unlawful here. So that's the test of whether it's cruel or not. It's whether it would be unlawful if it were happening here. And if it was, then you're not allowed to be advertising it when it's happening abroad. And the Act is also very important because its measures can be adopted by many other countries around the world where markets in unscrupulous animal tourism also flourish. So it's not just the UK. Of course, I'm afraid it's the US. It's across Europe. It's Australasia. It's actually every damn part of the world where this is going on. In other words, unscrupulous companies and people making money out of the ruination and decimation and extinction of all the most precious species that share this one planet with us.
Thank you for filling us in on this. So I want to talk a little bit about the Legal Hero of the Year 2024 award, a very prestigious law award. And Duncan, congratulations again. We have a lovely picture of you. But mainly, I want to focus for the audience on how do you think that this is going to impact in a positive way?
Well, it's very kind of you. I'm very honoured, of course. This is the biggest public recognition that the legal profession in Britain can give to one of its members. And the Law Society of England and Wales is an ancient, august, highly regarded institution that's been going just 200 years this year. And what's very important is in those 200 years, it has never recognized or honored or awarded anything for any animal welfare cause ever before. And I'm very proud of that, because what I'm doing, this is for the animals, right? This is not for me. I mean, I'm very honored. I'm grateful. There are many good people working in animal welfare. I think they thought it was remarkable that I managed to get a law through that I'd drafted, and that we go way back to campaigning for it. But it is about the animals, and what I hope it will do is to raise awareness. In England, there are 220,000 solicitors, and to be awarded out of that number is something. But what's more important is getting all those lawyers to be talking about these issues. Yeah, lawyers are well connected, they're influential, they are intelligent in the main, they have good ideas and so on. They have a reach overseas into the States and beyond. And to get them being aware of these issues, because when I made an acceptance speech, I explained some of the stuff that's going on, which clearly many did not know about. And I want the whole world to know about this, so they can decide, do we give a damn? Do we want to protect these ancient species from terrible torture and punishment, and to be saved to carry on living their lives with us on this planet? And also, I think it's the fact that, well, lawyers talk to people in every country, and I hope they will be a willing ally for us in passing these messages on. That's why it's important. And I hope to encourage other lawyers and other non-lawyers to be getting behind this cause. I've had a hell of a lot of people contacting me since that award was made just under 3 weeks ago. And I hope that will continue. We're trying to recruit them to save the Asian elephants and get them working to help us.
I want to jump in with a question related to what you were just speaking about, lawyers in various countries, because we know there is a cultural dimension to this issue we haven't touched on. That seems to be one of the stalwarts of all of this sort of like animal rights. Do we always come up against cultural issues or practices that are not, good practices today? So how do you address that?
Well, okay, so the way that my organization, Save the Asian Elephants, has encountered cultural issues is it's actually a bit of a misnomer. So, for example, when I've been to India, which I've done quite a few times, it's obviously it's predominantly not a Christian country, although there's a very large Christian population. It's predominantly Hindu and Muslim and Sikh and Buddhist and so on. Now, those people who have been making money out of the brutalization of animals in tourism and for profits claim, for example, that the terrible beatings and torture of elephants is somehow linked to ancient cultural practices in India, to Hinduism and to Buddhism and so on. In fact, it's rubbish. It's not true. Hinduism, all those religions and faiths are peaceable, animal loving. They respect and adore all of the creation of the world, whether we believe there's one God, many gods, or whatever. They believe that they're all creatures of the deity, and they deserve respect. This hideous beating you're seeing of elephants on screen is Pujan, but it's nothing to do with the religion of Hinduism and so on. I've made it a big point in England to seek out the most senior of representatives of the Eastern religions. All of them utterly reject and repudiate the suggestion that it's a cultural norm to brutalize our fellow creatures on Earth. So there's a lot of rubbish put around by those pursuing the commercial imperative. In other words, just screwing money out of these poor creatures. So we are unapologetic for what we're trying to do. We're trying to put an end to this brutality. We're trying to steer the tourism market from brutal to ethical. That's the purpose. We're not trying to undermine tourism, let alone religions. We hugely respect those Eastern religions and Christianity as well. Very much respect them. They are very close to each other in terms of respect for and their holy texts are full of this, of the respect we must show and the gentleness we must show to other creatures over whom we have, in fact, dominion. We have control of them, and we must exercise it with restraint and kindness and compassion. That's the repeated message from all these religious leaders.
And speaking of leaders and celebrities and notables, and how many of those people support this act, I would like you to touch on that. And I just want to also jump in with a slightly, it's related, but I know that King Charles has adopted Meat-Free Mondays, and just like, what has his support been like in this? And tell us a little bit about your because I know you're very well connected politically. Let's say you have a lot of, you've done a lot of hard work. So talk to us a little bit about that aspect and how that's going to help.
Okay, I wouldn't say that King Charles, as he now is on my speed dial on my mobile, but he's rendered. I mean, first of all, he and pretty much most of the royal family have a great heart for animal welfare issues. They do. There have been times in the past where things have gone wrong, but overall, he is really a very good voice for animal welfare, and he is I don't know him well at all. I don't know him personally, but I think he is a good and compassionate man. And he's moved by the horrors that my organization has made it a point to show to everyone, of the sort that you've just been showing on your show. He's rendered the greatest service he could, really, by immediately granting royal assent to this act of parliament. He didn't hang around. Royal assent usually takes months and months and months. And I was very worried last September at the thought that the royal assent, through no fault of his, might take time to be delivered, and in the meantime, the risk was government was about to be dissolved and parliament was about to be dissolved. But quite the contrary, I was absolutely astonished the next day to hear that His Majesty the King had immediately signed royal assent to this act. Immediately. He must have done it within minutes of it arriving on his desk. And, he's a busy guy with so many commitments. I was very moved and astonished and appreciative, and we all were, at that action. And I never fail, and I don't think I should fail, to tell people that not only did this act go through every stage of Parliament, and there were 9 or 10 such stages, without any division, that means they didn't have to take a vote, and without any amendment to its text at any stage. This is incredibly unusual. But then at the end of the process, the critical end, it only becomes law in our country when the monarch grants royal assent. And he did that immediately. And it's difficult for the reigning monarch to start talking about politics. Then they cannot do that constitutionally. But my goodness me, the speed with which he turned round his royal assent speaks volumes of where his heart lies and what he thinks of this cause. I think that's unambiguous, and I think it's very articulate and clear that he was hugely in support of this. And I would actually defy anyone in their right mind to argue, why would we not wish to protect these species? Who on earth is in favor of beating baby elephants to death for a few dollars for bloated tour companies, very, very often bloated tour companies?
Yes. If anyone has any questions, we have quite a few people watching. Please feel free to write them in the comments, and I will ask Duncan or put them up. Also, Duncan, I want to emphasize now how people can help, and then I'll give you a little bit of time. We're actually close to the end of our time, but I will give you some more time at the end. But let's talk about how a regular people like you and I can, well, you, not you, but like I can help. And tell us about that, please.
Okay, sure. Well, so first of all, if you're going on holiday soon, never go to venues where you can touch or play with the animals, because they are wild animals and they have been brought so low, usually by terror and torture and fear, to be submissive and subordinate. And so never go to such a place. And always ask your travel provider, whether it's on or offline, do you advertise and offer holidays where people can play and touch with animals? You can ask them in a neutral way. And if they say yes, or they don't know, you should say, I'm going to turn my back on you. And here's why. Do you realize, what is involved in riding animals and playing and selfies and touching, stroking, and all the other stuff I told you about before, and some of the stuff that's appearing on your screen. So that's point one. Reject any such venues and holidays. Research online and consider reviews. They're not infallible, but they are a guide. Speak to Save the Asian Elephants at stae.org, and we will give you the best advice we can on practices and what to do and not to do. Get involved. I mean, my view is that anything that man has done wrong, he can set aright. It can, of course, take a long time and many people to set it aright, but we're doing what we can at Save the Asian Elephants. So there are letters, if you're in the UK anyway, there are letters online that you can write at the flick of a button to politicians. But in the States and elsewhere, get your lawmakers involved. Indeed, tell me about opportunities to make public speeches on and offline in the States. I'm very keen to do that. I'm going to come to the States. I want to meet big audiences on and offline. I do big speeches in the European Parliament. I do big TV. I'd like to do some in the States. And so please let us know, both on and offline. I have physical meetings and big audiences, but also online, of course. Please tell your friends and family about Stay and write about us on social media and contact us. Introduce us to press, TV, radio, and new audiences, and volunteer to help us. Eventually, ultimately, I've got to say we need money. We have very little money. We take no pay. I've put a lot of money in. We pay our own expenses usually, but we have many more that we cannot afford. And to keep our work going, we're so grateful for any support of that sort. You can find us on our website and on PayPal. What I would ask is that you bear all those things in mind. It's a very, very crucial time. And remember, we're now trying to lay the ground for measures of the sort we've succeeded in getting in the UK into the US as well, and into the whole of Europe and Australasia and everywhere else. That's my intention. So all the things I've mentioned will add towards spreading awareness and building strength to get our friends in America and elsewhere to help us to gain law of this sort, so that when all the countries of the world who are offering these awful holidays stop those and steer you towards ethical, safe holidays in wildlife reserves and genuine sanctuaries, the animals then really can have a chance to recover and survive and prosper.
Yes. Well, if there's anything else you want to add, please do so now. Everyone, I had one more question. As far as this very important meeting coming up in October, unfortunately, not too far in the future, if we in America, our audience is primarily America, but also international, particularly some of our social media accounts. But people here writing a letter to your ministry, would that be a good thing before the meeting?
It
Can
would.
you go into that? Where would they find the information to do that?
Well, the letters that are on our website at stae.org, they are designed to be sent to British ministers and the Prime Minister and the British Minister. But if anyone wants help drafting a letter to an important lawmaker, minister, politician in your own country, I'm very happy to help. Just contact me at savetheasianelephants@stay.org. So one word, savetheasianelephants@stay.org. I can help you. I'm a practicing lawyer. I write letters for a living. I'm happy to help draft. I'm happy to give such advice as I can, because we don't want any country to be left undisturbed. We want people to rise up and pursue these measures in every country. We will be doing so.
I would like to just put the word out to all the different nonprofits that I've worked with to reach out to you. And if we could form a network where you could perhaps answer questions for them. I realize you're very, very busy, but they could introduce you to some American influence here with politicians, influencers, etc., that you're seeking. Perhaps a cross-continent cooperation could happen. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people I've interviewed, they watch the show. So we'll try to get that out there too across social, that you're trying to connect with people in the US that are doing the same type of work you are, so that you can each strengthen each other's work, as always it happens when we cooperate.
A good way to do it is to establish strong connections with animal welfare groups that exist already, and to gauge the ground, and to then decide how best to approach politicians and lawmakers, to leverage everything, and not necessarily before there is public pressure building up. There's less purpose in rushing into the arms of legislators who know nothing about and care even less about the welfare of endangered animals. What is important is to get up a power base within the countries concerned. There's great work going on in the States by many fabulous groups. They probably need to cohere around this issue, to combine as in a very large, powerful group. That's what STAY has always tried to do, to reach out and pull in supporters and really show the weight of numbers to politicians, to wither their shanks, to make them really think, my God, if I don't get behind this, I will not get re-elected. And there are many, many ways in which we can gain the attention and support of politicians. I mean, particularly elected politicians, of course, who are susceptible to getting kicked out by the electorate next time round. And I would be very open to discussions with animal groups and just with people of goodwill who have some influence or some information about it, particularly in the States. Very, very important, and not easy to get animal welfare legislation through Congress in the States. I'm well aware of that. But it's a fight to be had. And I and my team are implacable in wanting to engage in that fight and make sure we win it.
Absolutely. And I know we do have some wonderful groups here that work like SIL, social legislation for animals, that work towards passing legislation, and others. There's so many, I hate to name them because there's so many. And but if we could reach out to those folks, or if you work with those, you are like myself, you donate your time and you work with these organizations, please put the word out that Duncan is wanting to connect with organizations here, so that you can network and help each other.
Absolutely, it's crucial. It's really important, and it gains the attention of those with their hands on the levers of power, changing the law and changing the world. The law is not the only thing, and indeed, I'm making it very clear to our government that we expect them to implement a broad policy and program of public education and information simultaneous with and in the run-up to the implementation of the law, so people understand what is the problem, why do we need a law, and why this law, and how will it help, and above all, how can they help. And so it needs cooperation, including by government. And we're trying to make it clear to the travel industry it's in their own interests, where they are currently profiting from these brutal places, to turn the corner and to start to be green and to start to be environmentally aware and aware of the welfare of animals. And they will get a big benefit from that, as those who have already turned have proved to get, that people support and warm to them if they show some ethics in their business and their offerings. We're very clear about that. We've engaged with hundreds of travel companies, and that's the experience that we've had, that those who are receptive to demonstrating their compassionate towards animals are the ones who will get a lot more custom than those who just brutalize them. So I'm sorry, I've lost your sound.
I'm back. I'm sorry. My cat was meowing. I'm so happy you are here today. I have a menagerie. I'm an animal lover. But thank you for coming. Seriously, this is a serious issue, but there has been a wonderful progress. We all can take part in this. We all know this is not just a British problem. It's not a problem for just you to solve from where you are, but all over the world we can help, and we all participate when we go and do these tourism things. So you can spread the word to your friends, you can get this out there, and you can also help stay. So please do so. And Duncan, thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks very much.
We'll follow up with you.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thanks so much to your viewers for tuning in as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll be back next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.